Hello, math students. Today we're going to be talking about something called mean absolute deviation. This is a statistics kind of a lesson or a topic. When we talk about deviation, it's about how close a set of data is or how spread out it is. And when we're talking about particularly mean absolute deviation, we're talking about the absolute value, so only positive numbers, of the differences in the means. Now, when I say mean, I don't mean Mrs. Kempe. I mean what we usually think about for an average. So we're talking about adding up all the numbers and then dividing by however many there are. That's the mean. So that's this first step. Find the mean right there. And again, that's something that you should be familiar with. We should be okay with that. We're also going to, in this lesson, refresh your memory on things like mode, median, and range, which are other measures of center and spread that we talk about in terms of statistics. So when we're finding this mean absolute deviation, it's after we find the mean, obviously, then we're going to find the distance between each number that we have. That's what they mean by the data value. So each individual number that's in the list, we're going to find out how far it is away from the mean, from that average. And then we're going to find the absolute value of that, which means we have to make those numbers positive. So if a number that we have is smaller than the mean, it would have a difference that would be negative, but then we're going to change it all into a positive answer. And then we'll find the mean of all of those, the average of all of those. So that's this third step. Find the average of those differences. So this is a good place to have a calculator. It's going to be really very helpful for you if you do have a calculator handy. And this is the example problem that's on the back of your worksheet. So when we're looking at this, we want to find the mean, median, mode, and range. And then we're going to fill in this table that'll kind of take us step by step through to find the mean absolute deviation. We abbreviate that as the MAD, M-A-D, mean absolute deviation. So it is easiest if we find these numbers in our list in order from smallest to biggest. It makes the median a lot smaller, but it also kind of makes our math easier when we're finding the rest of these numbers. So if I put these all in order, 80 is the smallest number, so I've got that one, and then I've got an 81, and I've got an 85, and another 85, and then I've got 87 is the next number, and then 90, 92, and then 96. So that's our whole list of numbers. There were 2, 4, 6, 8 numbers to start with, and I've got 8 numbers in my list that I wrote up above in order. So when we're finding this data, you could actually put those numbers in order in the first column. So here's going to be 80, 81, 85, 85. I'm apologizing because it's going to be kind of smushy with my big marker here. 87, and then 90. Try to move my numbers over a little bit so that it's easier to read each one of them individually. And there's my 96. Okay, to find the mean. That's when we add all of these numbers up and divide by how many numbers there are. There were 8 numbers, we already figured that out. And I've already done the calculation on this. When I add up all 8 numbers, I get 696, and there were 8 numbers. So if I do that division, and by the way, I picked nice numbers on purpose because I got a mean that was a whole number. That doesn't always happen, but it did in this case. So in fact, right now, I could also go through and put the mean in all of these. Good, if I alternate a little bit, it's a little easier to read, I guess. Let's finish up the rest of that table in a minute. Let's remind everybody about what the median, the mode, and the range is. The median is the middle number once they're in order. And we have 8 numbers, so there isn't actually a middle number. But if I count in 4 from each side, that gets me right here. Since there isn't an actual middle number because there's an even number of data points, of numbers here, now I have to find exactly the middle. And this one, again, pretty easy. Right between 85 and 87 is going to be 86. If it wasn't as obvious, you would just find the average, the mean of those two numbers. You do 85 plus 87, get that total, and divide by 2. The mode is the thing that happens the most often. We don't always have a mode. Sometimes there's no mode. Sometimes we have more than one mode. In this case, we do have a mode, and it's going to be this 85 because it happened 2 times. Nothing else happened more than once. So my mode is going to be 85. And then the range, remember that's just the biggest number minus the smallest number. So I'm going to have 96 minus 80 is going to give me 16 for my range. Again, that's just looking at kind of where our numbers are and how spread out they are. Now we can finish up with our mean absolute deviation. When we're finding our differences in this table, I just want you to subtract exactly the way this looks. So when I have 80 minus 87, that is a difference that's negative 7. Now when I change that to a positive value, that'll be positive 7. Right? When we're talking about absolute value, that has to be a positive number. 81 minus 87 is going to be a negative 6, but the absolute value part of that is going to be 6. 85 minus 87 is going to be a negative 2, which will be a 2. And again, same thing. Then 87 minus 87 is exactly 0. 90 minus 87, now we're into positive numbers. Now notice this number was a positive. Don't make the next column a negative 3. It's still asking for the absolute value, which is going to be a positive number. 92 minus 87 is going to be 5, and that absolute value is 5. And then 96 minus 87 is going to be 9. Now, I want the sum. I want to add up all of those positive values. And again, great place for a calculator, but I've already done this for you. That's 34 when I add that all up. The count is just how many numbers are there. There are 8 numbers. And this is, again, finding the average, the mean of this list. So we added them all up. We're going to divide by 8. I can almost make this look like a fraction kind of. I want 34 divided by 8. And when I do that, I get 4.25. So again, that's the average of those different numbers to see how far away they are from the mean, from the middle of those numbers. So that's the mean absolute deviation. And again, it's looking at how spread out these numbers are, and they are fairly close together as a list. So today's practice problems are going to be on the other side of the worksheet. It's the measures of center and spread. Again, center and spread are just all these different statistics that we look at about kind of where these numbers are and how spread out they are. So the answer key is in Schoology. So check that after you finish. Be careful with finding the differences, knowing that you'll get some negative numbers, but then you're going to find the absolute value and get positive numbers. There is a learning check in Schoology. It looks just like this. I would strongly recommend you show your work on paper. Don't try to do everything in your head on this. Use a calculator, but still write stuff down. It'll really help you in the long run. If you need any help with this, let me know.